Good day there. Hi, it's Conversations with Aradia today. And something came up the other day, which I thought I'd just like to share some stuff about it. And it has to do with some of my native teachings and things that happened to me as a younger woman. So, round about, have to say 80, 85, 80, 86, 86. I was a single mother with my oldest daughter. Her father and I had split up as he succumbed to doing drugs, and I had to leave him. Unfortunate, because we were in love, but life sometimes gives us different turns. Anyway, so yeah, it was 86, and I had my own apartment, my very first apartment as an adult. I was 21 years old, and I had a new baby. And during our time that we lived in that place, I had three separate dreams, which were very interesting to me. And at the time, I had a friend, and her and I were very much into our native heritage. And we went to powwows and did bead work and went to all the goings on that we could at the time. So I was very much into that. And so I had these three dreams, and the first of the dreams was this white owl came to me, and it had these, the wings were, everything was pure white except for it had these sort of spots, brownish, grayish spots on the wings. And in the dream it was calling me forward. So I had two dreams of owls coming to me, and a dream that had a white swan come on the water and did this eerie call. And I wrote some poems regarding these dreams. And then in one dream, the third dream of import, there was an eagle in the dream. And the white owl was calling me forward, and I was following the white owl. And then this eagle was there, and then a feather dropped to the ground. And I knew I was supposed to pick it up, but for some reason I got distracted and I didn't pick it up. So then that summer, that would be summer of 87. No, 86, sorry, 86. I went to a gathering. It was my very first rainbow type gathering. And it wasn't just rainbow people. It was a gathering of back to the landers. A lot of them very down home, strong-minded people who homeschool their kids and that sort of thing, right? And it was in a place called Cache Creek in the interior of BC. And the Bonaparte band, Indian band, were putting on the gathering, and it was a salmon feast. And I brought my daughter, and I went with a friend, and I got to meet the chief, and the chief was also their medicine man. Very nice man. And so there was a bit of a talk and, little workshops going on here and there. And I went to one with him, and I ended up getting a private talk with him because I wanted to understand what was happening with my dreams and what was the dream saying to me. So during our first talk, he said that I needed to clarify the message. And he said this name to me twice, and he asked me to remember it. And then he said, go and pick some juniper, and to keep the juniper with me for 3 days and 3 nights, and sleep with it under my pillow, and that the meaning of the dreams would become clear to me. So then the gathering goes on. I met some wonderful people. I learned some great things. It was a really wonderful time. And at the end of the gathering, on the Sunday, I had another meeting with him. And we had a really good talk. And one of the things that came out was I realized that the white owl was calling me to my destiny, or what I thought was a higher calling of some sort. And that me not being able to me not recognizing the feather, that I needed to pick the feather up, was me not being quite ready to do that at the time, and that I didn't feel worthy enough. And then I said the name back to him, and he said yes. He said, yeah, okay, that is your native name. So he gave me that name as my native name. And he also said that whenever an animal or a bird or a creature shows themselves to you in the wild and also in your dreams, it is a message from Great Spirit that that animal has a message for you personally, and that you should listen to those messages. So I wrote a legend of Owl Woman. So the name that came to me was Skulula, which means little owl. And I wrote a legend of Owl Woman, which I have shared in various places, and I wanted to share with you today. And in relation to some things that have happened to me since then, of course. So the legend of Owl Woman is like this. And this did just come to me. As told by Skulula. There was once 2 eagle brothers. And these 2 eagle brothers were twins, and they were great friends, but they were also very great competitors. And their father, who was the sun, would watch them play as youths. But as they got older, they became more and more competitive, because the eldest, Kiri, felt that he was the best and the fastest and the strongest and the wisest, and that he should be named king. And at that time, it wasn't indefinite which one of the boys would inherit the kingdomship. And so one day, Kiri decided that he was going to prove that he was better than his brother, and that he was worthy to be king, and that he would fly closest to the sun. He would fly the highest and the farthest, and then his father would bless him with being the next king, the heir. So Kiri went off, and as he flew, his brother came after him saying, no, don't go that far. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to kill yourself. Don't, please come back. You can be king. But Kiri was very proud and arrogant and wanted to show his brother up. So he kept flying and flying closer and closer to the sun. And his father, the sun, looked down and saw the younger brother trying to save the older brother's life, and he got very angry with the older brother, Kiri. And he sent a shaft of light onto Kiri, which blasted him and knocked him senseless, and he fell far, 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 far down into the earth, beside a moon pool. Now, it just so happened that there was a young woman who was at the Moon Lodge, which is directly beside the moon pool. And a moon lodge is where women go when they are having their monthly time, their moon. And there's often a moon pool there so that they can bathe. So Kiri lands beside this moon pool, and Mogalia comes out of the lodge, and she sees him there. She's the only one there. So she goes to Kiri, seeing this broken eagle, but he's still living, and she tends him and fixes, gives him a splint for his wings, and feeds him and waters him, and keeps him hidden. Because soon some other women come, but she doesn't want them to see the eagle, because she's worried that they'll kill him. So she goes and feeds him and waters him, and the aunties and grandmothers and cousins are all wondering why she's spending so much time there when she's not on her moon. But she stays until he's well. And then Kiri begins to learn something about caring for other people. He watches he watches her. The name is always escaping me. Mogalia. He watches her and sees how she cares for others, sees how she comes and makes sure that he's fed and makes sure that he has water and tends his wounds with salves and ointments and feeds him. And some part of him begins to soften. And he begins to realize that what his father had done was not try to kill him, but he let him live so that he could learn the lessons he needed to learn. So as he's getting better, he begins to pray to his father, the sun. And he tells his father that he's learning now about humility and what it means to be taken care of and what it means to take care of others. And his father, the son, said, yes, you are correct, that this is why I did this to you, so that you could learn the lesson, so that one day you would be worthy to take the kingship. And Carrie tells him that he is actually in love with her and that he wants to stay with her. And is there a way for them to be together? And so the king, the son, says that there is a way that this can happen and that he approves of it, but that she must agree. So the next time she comes to feed him, and she's crying because she knows it's time for her to let him go, and that she's preparing herself for this. And she comes there, and Carrie tells her that his father, the son, has granted them to be together if she will consent to become a night eagle, so that on the full moons she would transform into an owl, and the two of them would hunt together, and that she would continue to teach him how to take care of others. So of course she agrees to this, and this happens. On the next full moon, she comes to the moon pool with the blessing of her grandparents and the aunties and uncles and the chief and the medicine man, and they watch her transform into the owl with the spotted wings. And from here on then, her and Carrie watch over the people. So so that came to me when I was, I would have been 21 years old or so. And I did actually get to share that at a couple of gatherings, which, was thankful. And I am learning the art of storytelling. Learning. Okay, so a little while after that happened, I was gifted a whole owl fan, which I'm going to show you. This is the one of the feathers that I use for blessing. And I am just going to go over there and get the fan because I forgot to bring it over here. So it was actually an owl wing, which then I made into a fan and did the beadwork there. And that medicine, that owl medicine, has always been with me since then. It teaches me a bit of foresight, and the owl always lets me know when there's danger or when something heavy is coming to me. So I keep that medicine strong with me. And then around about 2009, the eagle feather came. and it was gifted in the right way with someone who knew that it was time for me to have it, and so I did that work. This is a wing feather. This is a really big one. It's a big one, and actually they gave me several eagle feathers, and which I held on to for a few years, and then I gave to some elders in my community at ceremonies in 2012. And then most recently, this is what the whole purpose of this post is, the red swan feather came to me. And okay, if you look at the difference here between the eagle and the swan feather and the owl feather, okay? And you know the size of the feathers. And first I thought it was an eagle feather, but it's red. And I know of no red eagles that exist. And I have heard of red swans, but they're very rare. And this eagle came from the Northwest Territories. So I just did this beadwork on it to honor it, and I'm going to use it in my ceremonies. And guess what? Then I did some research on red swan and owl woman, and this is what came up. So owl woman is actually on Wikipedia. And here it is. Owl woman is a Cheyenne name. Mistenster is how they say it in that language. Died in 1847 and was a Cheyenne princess. She was a daughter of White Thunder, a well-respected medicine man of the Cheyenne tribe. She was married to an Anglo-American trader named William Bent, with whom she had 4 children. Owl Woman was inducted to the Colorado's Women's Hall of Fame for her role in managing relations between Native American tribes and Anglo-American men. So, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but I just find that very interesting about Owl Woman, and how in the legend that came to me, she was sort of an intermediary between the people and the birds and the owls and the eagles. Anyhow, so then I went on to Red Swan, and there's a legend of Red Swan, which I wanted to share with you. And it is it's here. It's saying, and there's a book called The Legends of the Kaw, the Folklore of the Indians of the Kansas River Valley. And it says it's Ojibwe, which is close to the Mi'kmaq. But it also seems to be Anishinaabe, certainly the Great Lakes Indians. And here we have the Swan Maiden on Wikipedia again. The Swan Maiden is a mythical creature who shapeshifts from human form to swan form. Despite the name, males are found in a small number of legends. The key to transformation is usually a swan skin or garment with swan feathers attached. And I may not have mentioned that. Yes, she had the owl wings. I didn't. That was in the pictures that I drew. Yes. The folklore of this type, the male character spies the maiden typically in some body of water, that usually bathing, then snatches away the feather garment, and which prevents her from flying away or swimming away, and renders her helpless in some form, forcing him to become his wife. And there's an old Scandinavian tale and Grimm's fairy tales about the Swan Maiden. Okay, so then this is the actual legend of Red Swan, which I'm going to read to you. It's a few pages, but it's worth listening to, I think. Red Swan. The great chief Red Thunder was traveling with his wife and 3 children to a council of the nations. When they were near the place appointed for the meeting, one of the children saw a beautiful white bird winging its way high into the air. He pointed upwards, clapping his hands for delight, for it was flying swiftly towards the earth, and the sun was shining on its broad back and white wings. Interesting. While the smile was on their faces, the birds suddenly appeared above them, and in a moment struck their mother to the earth, driving her into the ground, so that no portion of her body remained. The force of the blow was so great that the bird itself was broken in pieces, and its plumes were scattered far and wide, very similar to Kiri falling to the earth. The Indians assembled at this council, rushing forth eagerly to secure them, for a white feather is not easily procured and is highly prized in a time of war. Red Thunder stood speechless in his great agony. Then, taking his little ones with him, he tied into the forest, and no man ever saw him again. He built himself a lodge and never passed far away from its doorway. When winter shook his white locks and covered the land with snow, Red Thunder fell, shot by an unseen arrow. Thus the three boys were left alone. Even the eldest was not strong enough to bring home much food, and all that they could do was to set snares for rabbits. The animals were sorry for them and took them in charge. The squirrels dropped nuts in their doorway, and a great brown bear kept guard over them at night. They were too young to remember much of their parents, and they were very brave boys, who tried their best to learn how to hunt and fish. The eldest soon became skillful, and he taught his brothers. When they were all able to take care of themselves, the eldest wanted to leave them and go see the world, to find other lodges and bring home wives for each of them. The younger ones would not hear of this, and said that they had gone along so far well without strangers, and they could do so without them. So they continued to live together, and no more was said about any of them leaving. One day they wanted new quivers for their arrows. One made his of otter, another chose sheep, and a third chose wolf skin. Just to interject here, the Snakes teaching that I learned for making rattles was you had to have a white wolf or a white dog, which I have made myself. Anyway, let's go move on. Then they thought it well to make new arrows. They made many, being some of oak and very, very precious of the high bone of the buck. It took them much longer to fashion the heads of flint and sandstone, but at least all of them were finished, and they were ready for a great grand hunt. They laid wagers with one another as to who should come first with game, each one agreeing to kill only the animal he was in the habit of taking, and not to meddle with what he knew belonged to his brother. The youngest, named Deep Voice, had not gone far when he met a black bear, which according to the agreement he was not to kill. But the animal was so close to him that he could not refrain from taking aim, and the bear fell dead at his feet. His scruples were gone, so he began skinning it. Soon his eyes troubled him, and he rubbed them with his bloody hands. Then, when, on looking up, everything appeared red, he went to the brook and washed his face and hands. But the same hue was still on the trees. Okay. The ground, and even on the skin of the black bear. Okay, so let's go back here. And going back to the legend of the Kaw. Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt the story, but the well-known legend of the Red Swan was a satisfactory explanation of the crimson glow that spread over the water at sunset. Three brothers set out in different directions upon a hunting expedition to see who could procure the first game. I'm pointing this out because I think there was an actual event that happened historically that caused the red glow. There would not, if this is about a red glow, crimson glow, it would not be just from sunset. It would be from something that happened for a period of time. So that's just a side issue. Let me move on with the legend. So it says, the same hue was still on the trees, the ground, and even on the skin of the black bear. He heard a strange noise, and leaving the animal partly skinned, went to see whence it came. By following the sound, he came to the shore of a great lake, where he saw a beautiful swan swimming. Its feathers were not like any other swan he'd ever seen, for they were brilliant scarlet and glistened in the sun. He drew one of his arrows and fired it, but the arrow fell short of its mark. He shot again and again until his quiver was empty. Still the swan remained, dipping its long neck into the water, seemingly ignorant of the hunter's presence. Then he remembered the 3 magic arrows, which had belonged to his father, were in the wigwam. At any other time he would have not thought of meddling with them, but he was determined to secure this beautiful bird. He ran quickly to the lodge, brought the arrows, and fired them. The first went very near to the bird, but did not strike it. The second fell harmless into the water. The third struck the swan in the neck, but she rose immediately and fled towards the setting sun. Deep Voice was disappointed, and knowing that his brothers would be angry about the loss of the arrows, he rushed into the water and secured the first 2, but found that the third had been carried off by the red swan. He thought as the bird was wounded it would not fly far, so placing the magic arrows in his quiver, he ran to overtake it. Over hills and prairies, through the forest and out into the plain he went, until at last it grew dark and he lost sight of the swan. On coming out of the forest, he heard voices in the distance, and knew that people would not be far off. He looked about and saw a large town on a distant hill, and heard the watchman, an old owl, call out, "We are visited," to which the people answered with a loud, "Hello!" So the owls watch over the people in their village. Deep Voice approached the watchman and told him that he had come for no evil purpose, but merely to ask for shelter. The owl said nothing, but he led him to the lodge of the chief, who told him to enter. Come in," said the chief. "Sit here," he added as the young man appeared. He was given food to eat, but a few questions were asked him. By and by, the chief, who'd been watching him closely, said, "Daughter, take our son-in-law's moccasins, and if they need mending, do it for him." Deep Voice was astonished to find himself married at such a short notice, but made up his mind to let one of his brothers have her for his wife. She was not good-looking, and she proved herself bad-tempered by snatching the moccasins in such a surly manner that Deep Voice ran after her and took them from her and hung them up himself. Being very tired, he soon fell asleep. Early the next morning he said to the girl, "Which way did the red swan go?" "Do you think I can catch it? Do you think you can catch it?" she asked, turning angrily away. "Yes," he answered.